Great books, great ideas, great leaders. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Van Wilson, and I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Services with the VCCS. You all are really in for a treat, and boy, I thought I had a difficult time with the last panel of 3 with 4. This is really going to be a challenge. One of the interesting things about the panelists that I will share with you is I did some quick math in my head, and when I add up their collective experience, trouble already. When I add up their collective experience, I came up with like 1.8 million years. But when I take Dr. White off, it goes to something like 35 So this session will go by very, very quickly. So there's a quick introduction. Then I'll ask the panelists to respond to some questions. And then there'll be about 10 minutes or so at the end of the presentation for you to ask questions that you may have. A couple of things. This session is being live streamed, so please make sure your cell phone and your other devices are on vibrate or silent mode. And I have to take a quick commercial break. All of the books that have been featured in this series have been made available to you, and they are at the Follett table, and they were so kind as even to bring some books that were out of print back into print so that we could take advantage of them for this series. So without further ado, I'm just going to go quickly down the table and introduce each of our esteemed guests. First of all, from Southside, Virginia Community College, President Al Roberts. Next to President Roberts, from Virginia Highlands Community College, President Gene Couch. From Eastern Shore Community College, President Linda Thomas Glover. And from Russia, I'm sorry. And from New River Community College, President Charlie White. So let me toss the first question to President Roberts. President Roberts, if you would, please share this with us. So out of all of the books that were a part of the Chancellor's book series, tell us, why did you select this particular book? Now, I don't want you to get into the content because I'm going to follow back up and ask you to pull out some content for us, but why did you choose the book? And I didn't introduce the title as well.
Okay. The title of the book is Start With Why, and it's by Simon Sinek. And I'll just start off by saying that I worked in a variety of settings before coming to the community college. I've worked in radio, I've worked at a 4-year institution, worked several years for a private, not-for-profit community organization. But it wasn't until I found the community college that I found the place where both my professional values and my personal values aligned. As somebody who came of age in the 60s and was a product of the civil rights movement, I was immediately drawn to the community college's historic mission of access and opportunity. I believe community colleges are mission-driven institutions. I think most of us who work at community colleges are mission-driven also. And I say that to say this, that Sinek's work demands that we, both as individuals and as institutions, focus on mission. That, in his words, that we start with the why, that we start with the purpose, the belief, the cause that then is the context for all the decisions that we make, all the actions that we take.
Can I also answer that?
No, you cannot.
3 reasons why I picked the book I did. It's changed the culture, changed the game. We had a list. One, it was on the Chancellor's reading list, so I could read it. Number 2, the rest of the books were already taken by these people. And then third, I tried to get Abigail to let me talk about 50 Shades of Grey. She wouldn't hear it. So this is what you get today.
Oh, sorry.
Gene, help me.
Van, I think we're in for a real treat today. I don't know what to do with that, but I'll go back to your original question. Why did I? And I chose the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it was. I went back and looked. It was printed 28 years ago, and it sold 25 million copies. And so I was just doing the math. If he only made $1 off of that every copy, that's doing pretty good. Let me get you to raise your hands if you have read the book. A little less than half, maybe 40%. All right, so that tells me there's an opportunity for more sales. I don't get but the reason I chose this is I would liken it to if you were going to be a leader, and we've heard lots of opportunities where they describe that we are leaders, and that we all have part of our journey, teacher, leader, those kinds of things. And I would put it right up there as kind of like the King James version of the Bible kind of thing in terms of leadership, because and Ted just went with a wow. I do believe that, because for you to be an effective leader, you've got to be the best person that you can be. And so this really focuses on you in many respects, but there's lots of ideas that then transfer to your organization in terms of like a personal mission statement, all those kinds of things. But like what is it that you want to do and where you want to be, and then how do you get there? And so this book really allows you to kind of take that journey, if you will, to be a better you. And I think ultimately that translates then to being a better leader. And we'll talk more about the details of that later. Sure. Nothing to do with 50 Shades of Grey or any of that kind of stuff, but so there you go.
Ask them how many's read that book.
Dr. White, this broadcast is rated PG-13. Please be reminded.
Again, we're going worldwide here, Charlie.
Madam President.
Oh, goodness.
May I be excused? I have to find out from Abigail what I did to her. Have her put me with these guys. I love you all for that. However, one of my books of choice as well was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And thinking in terms of leaders, I personally believe that we are all leaders. Sometimes we may not see ourselves in that regard, but truly we are. Because bottom line, you may not see yourself as a leader at your institution, in your community, in your home, but there's one individual that you're always leading, and that's yourself. And so you just have to make that decision then of what type of leader will I be? And we've had experiences with a host of leaders with whom I happen to sit at the moment. You see that there are a variety, but that sort of becomes the core of determining what type of leader you truly want to be. And in that regard, then knowing that you want to be effective with that particular leadership style.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. White, do you have anything else you would like to add that we can we air over the public?
I would follow up with what she said, because you're all leaders, and you've already been exposed to something equal to a master's degree or a PhD in leadership, because you worked with leaders. Pick out the good ones, the ones you admire and the ones that influenced you the most, and imitate those. If you've reached the point where you have to read a book to be a leader, you're way behind the curve already. So it's kind of like teaching. You teach by imitating the good teachers that you had, and you don't worry about the bad. And leadership is the same way. And then different situations require different forms or different styles of leadership. Each situation you're in may be different, but you've already got a good idea of what kind of leader you want to be. And if you just follow that, it's not rocket science, folks.
Thank you, Dr. White. So going back to you, Dr. Roberts, if you would, for those of us who may not have read the text, can you pull out 2 or 3 kind of nuggets that you would share from your reading?
Sure. And these are sequential, and kind of one depends on the other one. So we'll start with Senec's observation from the beginning that there are only two ways to influence human behavior, and that's what we do as leaders. And those two ways are manipulation and inspiration. And we all know those things that fall into that manipulation category: bonuses, fear of losing your job, peer pressure, those kinds of things. But the reality is that while both manipulation and inspiration are both effective, that manipulation is really short-term, and that it costs more. You put yourself in a downward spiral, and it ends up costing you a lot over time. So then the second nugget then is the alternative to manipulation, and that's where Senec introduces his theory of the golden circle. And if you can imagine a large circle, and according to his theory, that is what we do. And then there's a smaller circle on the inside that made up of why we do what we do. Excuse me, I said that wrong. How we do what we do. And then there's the smaller inner circle that describes why we do what we do. And it leads us to the final observation of Senec, is that most organizations work from the outside in. They think about what they do first, and then how they do it, and then why they do it. But successful organizations start with the why and work out. It's an inside-outside progress, so that you start with the why as a basis for all of your decisions, and then you think about the how you do it and what the end result is going to be.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Couch, what 2 or 3 nuggets would you like to share from your reading?
I'm going to defer to my colleague because she has prepared remarks that has it 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to, because there's 7 habits, and I'm going to fill in around that if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
He didn't read it.
I must defend him. He did to read it. Okay. As Dean said, there are 7, and with the directions that were given to us, I decided really just to sort of focus on 3 of those. And
Thank you so very much, Madam President.
If women rule the world. The first that I like to address is beginning with the end in mind. And when I heard that statement many, many years ago in exposure to this, I really sort of latched on to that, and I think some of that comes from my background in chemistry, because you're putting things together and it's down here is where you want to get, and that's what you're always sort of focusing on. But that also means that when you're thinking about leadership, when you're working with teams and individuals, you're starting out thinking, well, okay, this is what it is we absolutely want to accomplish. But then my question always becomes, well, what will it look like when we have declared success? We have to have a clear vision in our head of what that's going to look like. And then we start that process, as Al alluded to, of working our way back, going, okay, well, we're at point A, we want to get to point B, and we know what that's going to look like. Now, what are all the things that need to happen? What's the plan? What are the assessments that we're going to utilize to know that we're successful in staying on track along the way? So that whole aspect of beginning with the end in mind. And one of the core things that's referenced is the fact that you're really tapping into one of the greatest strengths you have, and that's your imagination, to be able to have an image of what the future will look like. And so that's a core one that really kind of resonates with me. A second one, again, ties in with some of what Al addressed, was the aspect of putting first things first. And that gets to your purpose. That gets to the why you're doing this. How does this relate to your mission statement, whether it's the mission statement of the unit, of an institution, of the home, and I'll go back to the mission statement for yourself, because you're always leading yourself regardless. Just think for a moment about what I would call like the negative Nellies and the Susie Sunshines. The negative Nellies, if left unattended, can take you down a very, very unpositive, a very, very negative environment. The Susie Sunshines, on the other hand, one of the big distinctions is It's not that they don't see the negatives, they choose to dwell upon the positives. So they're balancing out those two components. Both of those personality types are going to be leading those individuals around you. And so, yes, those particular aspects are very, very important in terms of your core values and et cetera. And then also, lastly, the third one for me was just thinking about the win-win and how you manage conflicts. To me, conflict is not a bad thing. It's really a good thing because it means that there's things that need to be resolved, discussions that need to be had. And we need to develop that appreciation for those differences in opinions and have those hard conversations, keeping in mind that a big part of it is how we have those conversations. Because opinions and ideas are just that, opinions and ideas. Charlie's net worth doesn't have anything to do, and yes, I have to talk very fondly of you because I love you, but Charlie's self-worth doesn't have anything to do with an opinion that he might have that could be different from mine. So we can discuss those differences. We can even yell and scream about those differences. But when it's all over, we still need to be able to come together so that we have a win from the larger situation that we're looking at. So, and knowing that we have a lot more to say, I'll stop and turn it over to my good friend.
Thank you, Jean.
Now, I'd point to three things. One is the notion and the idea of, as an effective leader, as an effective individual, as a move from the area of dependence or independence, but interdependence, that we're all connected, and it makes sense. It only makes sense that how everything fits together, regardless. Even people that perform in individual sports, golfers, tennis players, individual sports, they will look to, there is still a team of individuals that are part of that success. And so there's a high level of interdependence. We're all connected. And so the success of individuals or organizations is, again, connected around the notion of all of us being the best that we can be. And for our scientists in the room, if you're at 211 degrees, what do you have? You have hot water or steam. You have 212, what do you have? You can move locomotions, right? And so it's a matter of being the best person that you can be, that we're all fit together. Second thing is being proactive. And, you could group people into three areas, people that make things happen, people that let things happen, or people say, what just happened? and so of those three categories of people, would you rather be a person that's shaping and influencing and kind of directing your chart, your course, and your organization's future? And so being proactive and look at it again, what does that look like at the end? Strategically plan your future or your organization's future and kind of move forward. And the third thing I would say is balance. And he listed as his number 7 habit is sharpen the saw. And he's primarily talking about, and he uses a terrific example of an individual is out there sawing a tree down, and his saw is dull. He's just, no chips are flying. And he said, why don't you stop and sharpen your saw, and then you'll be able to cut the tree faster. And his response was, I don't have time to do that. And that's ironic. But I mean, in his mental model, he didn't have the time to do that. And so I use the term of balance, and if you think about it, part of it is putting first things first, and exercise, other kinds of things, being healthy, and in terms of balance, diet. Does anybody really love to exercise? Maybe, maybe not, but we know it's important for us, right? Same notion of staff development, doing these kinds of things to learn and grow and invest in yourself. And again, taking the time to stop and sharpen your saw. So I'll share. Those are the three things I'll share with you.
Thank you, Dr. Couch. Change the culture, change the game. So what 3 things, Dr. White, do I need to know about that book?
Well, the folks talk about the results you're getting in whatever issue you're working with. They're the result of your culture. And if you're getting results that you don't like or don't want, then you have to change the culture of the group that you're working with. And about the 4th chapter, I figured out what he was talking about with the culture. It's what your people think, what they believe, and how they act. Now, they may be good people, but the way they're thinking, the way they're acting, is not getting you the results you want. So if you want to change the results, you have to go back and work and change the culture in your people. You got to change the way they're believing, the way they're thinking, and the way they're acting. And it's not always easy. Changing the way people think, act, and carry things out is kind of hard. It's slow. It's been compared to moving a cemetery. You know, it's a slow process. You get absolutely no help from the residents. And so you have to change those folks around and get them to thinking differently. Second, if you get them thinking differently, then you have to get a plan that will include the results that you want. Get everybody to buy in, committed to, and working on it, and then you'll get the results that you expect. You got to listen to your folks. You got to get them all involved, and then you go from there. Get input from everybody, and the last thing is once you get that plan developed, you get the culture changed, then you hold everybody accountable for the results. And when you do that, you will change the culture, you will change the game, and you'll get results that you're looking for.
Very good. Thank you. So I'm going to go off script just for a second here and ask this question. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Roberts. So from your reading, as you do a self-assessment or self-evaluation, tell me, what was the most challenging thing, what challenged you the most as a president?
Well, Sinek uses lots of case studies in his text. And unlike a lot of other books that I've read, he not only uses case studies to illustrate successful leadership or successful organizations, he also includes a number of case studies about why other organizations were not as successful. And when you look at, and he's very descriptive in terms of how each of these organizations either started off with their focus on the why, or if that was the least of the considerations. And so it kind of forced me to look at what we did at Southside in terms of our decision-making process, because that's all leadership is for most of us. It's a series of decisions. It's decisions about who we hire. It's a decision about establishing priorities or strategic objectives. So it's all a matter of making decisions and looking at those decisions and determining whether or not those are effective for our organization based on the organization that we run. And I took the liberty to look at the community college as a whole and examine it both from what Sinek describes as the unsuccessful model of looking at it from what we do first, and then looking at it from why, starting with why. And so, if you don't mind, I'm going to share that because I think it really helps us to understand what he was saying. If we describe our organization starting with the what, it sounds like this. We deliver quality academic and workforce training programs, that's the what, by hiring qualified faculty and staff to provide appropriate support services in safe, well-maintained facilities. That's the how. And certainly that's not an all-inclusive list, but I think you get the idea there. Because we believe in the transformative power of education to positively impact both the individuals and communities we serve. And that's the why. But when we approach it from the outside in, that doesn't become the primary focus. So if you restate it, starting with the why, it sounds like this. We believe in the transformative power of education to positively impact the individuals and communities that we serve. To that end, we hire qualified faculty and staff to provide appropriate support services in safe, well-maintained facilities for the delivery of quality academic and workforce programs. To me, that is a much more powerful statement by starting with the why. And so I think we can all take that as an example. And if, for example, the hiring process, say we're getting ready to hire a new faculty member. And if we are making that decision based on the what, all we care about is the VCCS 29 and whether or not that person meets the minimum qualifications to teach that particular subject area. But if we're starting with the why, then our primary concern is, does this person share our belief and our value system about why we exist as a community college? To me, that gives us an employee who is going to be much more productive and contribute much more to our organization.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Gene, the same question for
I'll
you.
I'll share a couple ideas that kind of take off what Al was talking about in terms of decisions. We all know that we're going to mess them up on occasion, and probably more than we would like to admit, and those kinds of things. But one of the ideas in the book talks about an emotional bank account, and much like a physical bank account that you have at your local bank. And so, in terms of making deposits and withdrawals. And so if you then take that logic and then transfer it to, as a leader in an institution, in your personal relationships with your spouse, those kinds of things, you're investing or making deposits. And much like that as a leader in an organization, because hopefully we're making more deposits than we are withdrawals. But occasionally, we would like to admit it, but we're going to mess up. And we're going to have some opportunities where, activities where we've made a withdrawal or two. And so, hopefully, we've got enough deposits in our accounts so that, in fact, you do give us a pass on occasion and say, okay, your balance is still good. You know, you don't want to obviously hit negative, but that's an area I think is pretty profound in terms of making sure that you're making more deposits than you are withdrawals. Otherwise, I don't think you are a terribly effective leader if it's all withdrawals. And so I share that with you. The other part, in terms of thinking about what you focus on, he talks about Al, you talked about circles a second ago. I thought you were going to talk about this, but he talks about two circles. One's a subset of the other one, in terms of your circle of influence and then your circle of control, or your circle of concern, rather. And so where you invest in your energy, the things that you can influence, or the things that are outside of your control. We can't control the weather. All right, I have little control over the state budget, right? So I don't spend a lot of time worrying about that, and so I only think about the things that's in my circle. And so, and occasionally, in fact, I shared this example with my sister recently. She was sharing some stories about my mother, her mother, and I'm going, "That's out of your circle. Don't waste your energy." You know, get in your circle. What are the things you can influence and focus and put your energy there? And so as you look at those kinds of things, you know, I think that's pretty helpful. And as, again, we're going to make deposits and withdrawals, again, hopefully more deposits.
So President Thomas Clover, what would you share?
What I'll share actually sort of comes from two sources. And some of it goes back to the fourth principle about thinking win-win and managing conflicts. The other book that was on my list was Staying Alive Through the Dangers of Leadership by, I guess, Heifetz and Linsky. And when I read that book, chapter 3 was just like, you know, the heavens opened and the trumpets started going and these sorts of things. And the title of that particular chapter was Go to the Balcony. And the title just intrigued me, but it overlays with many of the things here. And the whole concept was, especially as you're dealing with conflicts, which will invariably arise. That's just the nature of leadership. But just think of conflict as perhaps if this were a big formal dance that was going on. And there would be people dancing, having fun, etc. Some people might be over in the corner. Some people doing waltzes, etc., and other people making up their own moves. And that's what you see when you're looking on this level. But when you go upper level to the balcony and then look down, you may see an entirely different picture of what's going on. So as we're working through those situations of dealing with conflicts and trying to get win-wins as much as possible, it's important to do that step back, go to the balcony, and have that time of reflection and really try to see what's going on. Because the first thing that hits you many times is not what the real issue is. And so keeping that focus and doing that pause and, okay, time to go to the balcony. Let's step away from this. Let's look very carefully. Here's a component or section of my unit that, for whatever reason, isn't engaged. But as long as I was here, I wasn't really able to see that. So now it's a matter of how do I get those particular entities and units engaged and connected? What am I hearing from people in my conversations? That individual that sits over in the corner and doesn't offer an opinion. Do they not have an opinion? Or are they just not offering it because perhaps we haven't created an environment where they feel comfortable bringing forth what might be viewed as an opposing view? And again, not all conflict is bad. And when we think about our system focus around inclusion and diversity, I see all of that laying in together. That sometimes we're going to get our best solutions out of listening to those who have thought patterns that are a little different from ours.
Excellent, thank you. So, Dr. White, what would you share in terms of something that maybe challenged you that you pulled out of the text?
I have always been better at creating challenges than I have at
Creating
solving.
conflict. I thought you were going to say go to the balcony and shout.
Some of the challenges that I've had is in hiring the right person to fit our environment. If you hire somebody that, most of the people that apply for jobs, they got the qualifications to do it. But you gotta see if that person's a fit. And if that person is not a fit, it'll cost you more hassles than you really want to put up with. So you do everything you can to make sure you vet that individual before you get them on, making sure they fit your culture. I remember one time we were hiring a math teacher. We had applications all over the country. So the VP and I went out of state, watched this person teach, talked to the community, talked to this. We did all the research and spent 3 or 4 days down there. And then she decided she wanted to preach rather than teach. So we didn't get her. But to do the research and make sure you get a fit, and then that person fits, if it fits that environment, and you get the culture built like you want it, so everybody looks forward to coming to work rather than waking up on Monday morning and say, God, I hate going in that place. You've got to like what you're doing, and you've got to like the people you're working with. If you're not, don't stay there and be miserable till they have to run you off, because when you get a bad one, they won't leave and they won't die. You got them forever. You know? So dealing with those types of things, that's a challenge for us. Now, they didn't say it exactly like that in the book. That's what I got out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. Wow, this time is really flying by, but I did want to pause. I did want to pause and see if there were any questions or comments that you had for our distinguished panel of presidents.
We know a lot of stuff, so ask us. They know a lot of stuff.
You know the most.
I think they're just terrified.
They'll get over it. They'll get over it.
So let me toss
I
out
would say, Van, while we're waiting for a question, if I can just follow up a little bit on something Charlie said, because he mentioned culture a lot in his last question, and that has come up throughout all the conversation that we've been having. And Sinek in his book talks a lot about the value of starting with the why in terms of helping to build institutional culture, and the responsibility of the leader of that organization to be able to articulate to everybody in the organization what the why is, and to be persuasive and get buy-in from everybody so that everybody is all on one page. And then when conflict arises, if you can go back to the why, then the conflict is not is not so big and doesn't become unresolvable because everybody has the same end in mind. And we realize that there are just different ways, different approaches maybe to reaching that end. But if we can start with the why and start with the purpose, the value system, the belief system of our institution, and then the responsibility of the leadership, to articulate that and create buy-in is valuable to creating culture.
So you all are talking about, your reading and you're sharing your perspective as presidents. But what about those of us who are administrators, faculty, and staff? What is it that we can take away from your text that we can take back with us when we return to the classroom and or the office that would be impactful and help support the the mission of the VCCS.
I've got a passage that I selected that if you all will indulge me that I'd like to read, because I think this really brings it home and it puts it into a perspective that everybody can relate to. And the title of this little section is called Giveem, a Cathedral. And it says, consider the story of two stonemasons. You walk up to the first stonemason and ask, do you like your job? He looks up at you and replies, I've been building this wall for as long as I can remember. The work is monotonous. I work in the scorching hot sun all day. The stones are heavy, and lifting them day in and day out can be backbreaking. I'm not even sure if this project will be completed in my lifetime, but it's a job, it pays the bills. So you thank him for his time and you move on. About 30 feet away, you walk up to a second stonemason. You ask him the same question. Do you like your job? And he looks up and replies, I love my job. I'm building a cathedral. Sure, I've been working on this wall for as long as I can remember, and yes, the work is sometimes monotonous. I work in the scorching hot sun all day. The stones are heavy, and lifting them day after day can be backbreaking. I'm not even sure if this project will be completed in my lifetime, but I'm building a cathedral. I think that's just really, really profound in terms of keeping the focus on why you're doing the work that you're doing and not what the work is, because the work can be challenging. The work can be monotonous. And sometimes it's hard to see how what you're doing relates to the why for the institution or for the organization. But I thought that was a good way to illustrate how everybody in the organization is contributing to the why.
Thank you. And Dr. Couch, I'm going to skip you because Dr. Linda Thomas Clover has notes. So,
I'm prepared to answer this one.
go ahead, Jim.
I'll leave you with a quote by Stephen Covey. It says, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And so I think that's pretty powerful. In fact, I share that in many cases with students at new student orientation. Say, so what is it again? What is it you want to be? And then go about working toward that end. Again, creating the plan and then working the plan, because I think that is pretty powerful to kind of figure out what is it that you want to do and be the best person that you can be. And Linda referred to another book. There's a book called You Don't Have to Have a Title to Be a Leader. Mm-hmm. And so we're all leaders in here. And so what kind of leader do you want to be? And so I would encourage you to do those kinds of things, self-reflection, and then chart your own journey. I wish you the best in your own journey, but the best way to be successful is do your job, your current job, well. Mm-hmm. If you want to move within the organization. And trust me, people notice it. I'll give you a quick example. If you keep up with sports, the coach for Clemson, before he became the head coach at Clemson, was the coach for the punter. And he kept saying, and he wasn't the assistant coach, offensive coach, defensive coach, but he was the coach for the punter. And the athletic director noticed there was something unique and special about what he did and how he did it. And he got the opportunity, and now he's Devil Swings and making millions, and the head coach of the Clemson Tigers. So it's, again, do your job well. We notice when great things are happening. Trust me. We may not look like we notice, but we do notice. That's the tricky part, right, Ted?
Okay. Madam President?
Okay. Again, just very briefly, I'll sort of go back to what I said before, and Dean has articulated it very well, is the aspect of acknowledging, recognizing, and accepting the fact that you are a leader. By virtue of the fact that you're here, because you could be doing other things this afternoon, there's a little bit of an interest in that particular regard. And the sharpening the saw, refining your skill set to truly be the type of leader that you want to be. Those ideas and thoughts that you have, don't hold back on those things. Share them. One, and I've said this on my campus, one of the most important positions on our campus, well, I'll say two, are occupied by individuals who, one, maintain our grounds and facilities, because if your campus doesn't look good, nobody's coming. And two, the person who answers the phone at the receptionist desk. Because if they don't get a tone that they are welcomed in this place, they are not coming to this place. And so all along that spectrum, there are individuals, you all, your hands, your actions that touch those students who come through our doors. Those need to be positive experiences. So never, ever allow yourself to feel that I'm just anything. No, you are the best of whatever it is that you're doing. You're touching lives, you're making a difference. And for many of the students that we serve, that difference is tremendous. So I just, again, commend everybody for that desire to serve our students that helps our communities, our colleges, and our Commonwealth to be the best.
Okay.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
The big finish, Charlie.
Bring it on
A few
up.
minutes.
I would say, be at work, be glad to be there, have fun while you're there. Don't be afraid to speak up, don't be afraid to disagree, but be optimistic. Be positive. You know, they tell a story about two guys that were about 12, 13 years old. One of them was a terrible pessimist, and one was opposite end of that, an optimist, and he stayed happy and was happy all the time, and they were doing an experiment with him. So they put the pessimist in a room, a playroom, that had every toy that a kid could want in there to play with. And they go in, they look and watch them through these two-way screens. They don't know what they're getting watched, I guess. And the kid is kind of miserable. And they go in and talk to him and says, why are you miserable? He said, oh, all these toys are nice, but said, I'm afraid to touch one. I'm afraid I'll tear them up, blah, 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 blah. Well, they put the optimist in a barn with several stalls, and horse manure was about a foot deep in it. So they watch him a while, and they go in and said, how can you be happy in all this? And he was running from stall to stall, looking, he was excited, glad to be there. I said, what makes you happy while you're here? He said, with all this horse manure around, there got to be a pony here somewhere. So, looking for the pony. That's what you got to be doing. If you're dreading going to work, change. Go somewhere else. It's easy to change. It's easy to be happy. You spend at least a third of your life at work. You ought to have fun there. You know, I've been in the system a long time. I worked in
1.3 million years. I added them up.
1.3. I've got 45 years in the VRS, and I've never worked a hard day in my life. You know, I always enjoy being there. And I don't wake up Monday morning and say, oh, it's goody, I got to go work. But I don't wake up and say, God, I hate going down there. Enjoy what you're doing. Be happy. It's catching. Everybody else will be happy. Make sure the people, we had a,
Is it rated G?
we had a machine shop teacher. He had a sign in his room, in his machine shop, said, life is too short to dance with ugly women. Well, he got a lady division chairman. You know how long it took him to take that down. Life is too short to hang around with ugly people. You know, have fun. It gets past you too quickly. Do the best you can at your job. A lot of people ask me, how do I train to be a college president? Be a good assistant. Be a good teacher. Be a good division dean. And those will come to you. You can't go out here and say, well, I'm going to do this. It's going to make me a good leader. It's not going to do that. The people you lead, the people you work with, will make you a good leader. Those are the people that'll make you successful. And then get lucky and grab the opportunities when they show up. And you'll never work in a better place. And I don't have to say this because Glenn's not in here, and I'm going to be working for another 3 months, and then I'm out anyway. You work for the best organization you could possibly work for, and that's the VCCS. Have fun while you're doing it.
I have never been involved or engaged with a panel where they talked about an optimist, pony poop, and ugly women in the same context.
But think about it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time today. Please help me thank our panelists.